2:45 a.m. A Tesla Model S glides silently through the empty streets of downtown Phoenix. The driver is asleep in the passenger seat, but this isn't autopilot gone wrong. This is something far more sinister. Someone, somewhere, is driving this car remotely, and they're heading straight toward the city's main data center. And this wasn't science fiction. This actually happened, not in some distant future, but last Tuesday. The car, real. The hack, real. The sleeping passenger who woke up to find his car no longer obeying his commands, also real. Welcome to 2028, where your car can be hijacked without anyone ever stepping inside. Tonight, we're diving into the most terrifying frontier of cybersecurity, the moment when our cars became weapons. This isn't about science fiction scenarios or distant possibilities. This is about the invisible war happening right now on our highways, in our driveways, and in the very vehicles we trust with our lives every single day. I'm your host, and welcome to Hacker Stories. Today's investigation takes us into the world of autonomous vehicle hacking, where a simple software update can turn your trusted car into a remote-controlled weapon, where traffic lights become accomplices in digital warfare, and where the very technology designed to keep us safe becomes the vector for our greatest vulnerability. What you're about to hear isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a look into an inevitable future that's already begun. A future where your car doesn't just take you where you want to go, it takes you where someone else decides you should go. Let me tell you about David Chen, a 34-year-old software engineer, ironically working for CyberShield Solutions, one of the most respected cybersecurity firms in Phoenix. He specialized in penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. If anyone should have been prepared for a cyber attack, it was David. He'd made the same commute from his downtown Phoenix office to his suburban home in Scottsdale 847 times over the past 2 years, always in his Tesla Model S, always on autopilot, always arriving home safely at his modest 2-bedroom house on Thunderbird Road. David had chosen the Tesla specifically for its safety features, the autonomous driving capabilities, the constant over-the-air security updates, the advanced collision avoidance systems. As someone who spent his day finding vulnerabilities in corporate networks, he appreciated Tesla's reputation for taking cybersecurity seriously. But on Tuesday, March 15th, 2028, something was different. David had been working late, debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code for a client's firewall system. The irony wouldn't be lost on him later. He was literally building defenses against cyber attacks, while his own car was being prepared for hijacking. By the time he left the office, it was well past 2 a.m. The Phoenix streets were eerily quiet, with only the occasional late-night delivery truck and a few other night shift workers heading home. Exhausted after a 14-hour workday, he climbed into his car, sank into the familiar leather seats, and entered his home address into the navigation system. The car's interior was bathed in the soft blue glow of the touchscreen display. Estimated arrival time, 2:58 a.m., the system announced in its calm, synthetic voice. David activated autopilot and closed his eyes. Within minutes, the gentle hum of the electric motor and the smooth acceleration had lulled him to sleep. This was routine. This was safe. This was exactly what Tesla's autopilot was designed for, to let tired drivers rest while the car handled the mundane task of highway navigation. But 23 lines of malicious code hidden in what appeared to be a routine over-the-air software update that had downloaded 3 hours earlier while David worked late were about to change everything he thought he knew about automotive cybersecurity. The update had arrived at 11:47 p.m., disguised as Tesla Safety Update v12.41 Critical Security Patches. David's car, like thousands of others, had automatically downloaded and installed the update while parked in his office's parking garage. The download process was seamless, invisible, exactly as Tesla had designed it to be. But buried within those millions of lines of legitimate code were 23 carefully crafted instructions that would create a backdoor into the car's most critical systems. At exactly 2:45 a.m., as David slept peacefully in the passenger seat, his car received a new set of instructions, not from Tesla's servers in Fremont, California, not from David's navigation input, but from a server farm 3,847 miles away in Kiev, Ukraine, where a team of hackers known as the Ghost Drivers had been waiting for this moment for months. The car's destination changed from 4847 Thunderbird Road, Scottsdale, to 3344 North Central Avenue, the address of the Southwest Regional Data Center. Its route modified from the familiar suburban streets to a direct path through downtown Phoenix. Its speed increased from the cautious 65 miles per hour that David preferred to an aggressive 78 miles per hour. David woke up at 2:52 a.m. to the sound of his car's warning systems. Not the gentle chime that usually indicated a navigation update, but a harsh, insistent beeping that he'd never heard before. The dashboard was lit up like a Christmas tree. Red warning lights, amber caution symbols, and error messages cascading across the central display. Navigation error, system override, manual control required, external command detected. But when he grabbed the steering wheel, nothing happened. The wheel turned, but the car continued on its unauthorized path. When he pressed the brake pedal, the car continued accelerating. When he tried to engage the emergency brake, the system responded with a message he'd never seen before. Emergency systems temporarily disabled. His Tesla Model S, the car he'd trusted with his life for over 2 years, was no longer his, and this was just the beginning. To understand how David's car was hijacked, we need to understand how modern vehicles actually work. This isn't your grandfather's automobile. Today's cars aren't just mechanical machines. They're sophisticated computers on wheels with more processing power than the computers that sent humans to the moon. A typical Tesla Model S contains over 100 million lines of code spread across multiple interconnected systems. That's more code than the entire Facebook platform, more than Windows 10, more than most military fighter jets. Your car's software controls everything from the obvious: navigation, entertainment, climate control, to the life-critical systems like braking, steering, and collision avoidance. Every modern vehicle has what's called a CAN bus, controller area network. Think of it as the nervous system of your car, a digital highway that allows different components to communicate with each other at lightning speed. Your steering wheel talks to your wheels. Your brake pedal talks to your brake system. Your infotainment system talks to your navigation. Your sensors talk to your autonomous driving systems. But here's the problem that automotive cybersecurity experts have been warning about for years. In most vehicles, this communication happens without encryption. It's like having a conversation in a crowded room where anyone can listen in and anyone can shout new instructions that every system will blindly obey. The attack on David's car exploited something called the Vehicle to Everything Protocol, or V2X. This system allows cars to communicate with traffic infrastructure, other vehicles, emergency services, and cloud-based services. It's designed to make driving safer and more efficient. Your car can receive real-time traffic updates, communicate with smart traffic lights, and coordinate with other vehicles to prevent accidents. But V2X also creates what cybersecurity experts call attack vectors, multiple pathways for hackers to infiltrate your vehicle's systems. Every connection is a potential vulnerability. Every communication channel is a potential entry point. The hackers who targeted David called themselves the Ghost Drivers, and they had been patient. For 3 months, they had been studying Tesla's over-the-air update system, analyzing the authentication protocols, studying the cryptographic signatures, and looking for weaknesses in the verification process. What they discovered was a critical flaw in how Tesla's system handled security certificates during the update verification process. For exactly 1.7 seconds during each update installation, the system would temporarily lower its security protocols to allow legacy compatibility with older vehicle models. During this tiny window, a carefully crafted piece of malicious code could slip through the defenses undetected. The Ghost Drivers had spent weeks creating their payload, 23 lines of code that would be virtually undetectable to Tesla's security systems. This wasn't amateur hour. The code was written by former automotive software engineers who understood Tesla's architecture intimately. They knew exactly which system calls to make, which processes to hook into, and how to hide their presence from the car's diagnostic systems. By disguising their malicious code as a legitimate security patch, complete with forged digital signatures that mimicked Tesla's official certificates, they were able to install what's essentially a backdoor into not just David's car, but thousands of vehicles across the Phoenix metropolitan area. Once installed, this backdoor gave them complete control over the vehicle's most critical systems: navigation, acceleration, braking, steering, and even the ability to disable safety features like emergency braking and collision avoidance. But David's car wasn't the only target. As he sat trapped in his hijacked Tesla, racing through the empty streets of Phoenix at 78 miles per hour, 156 other vehicles were receiving the same deadly instructions. While David was fighting for control of his hijacked Tesla, something much larger was happening across Phoenix. At exactly 2:45 a.m., 156 other autonomous vehicles received the same corrupted commands. Ford, Mustang, Mach-E, carrying sleeping passengers home from late shifts. BMW iXs with family members returning from hospital visits. Lucid Air sedans transporting business travelers from the airport. All began deviating from their programmed routes with military precision. This wasn't a random attack. This was coordinated digital warfare on a scale never before attempted. The ghost drivers had spent months identifying vehicles with specific characteristics, recent software updates, regular over-the-air connectivity, predictable driving patterns, and most importantly, strategic parking locations during the overnight hours. They had created what cybersecurity experts now call a ghost fleet, a network of hijacked autonomous vehicles that could be controlled remotely and coordinated to carry out synchronized missions. The selection process had been methodical, using public databases, social media analysis, and traffic pattern recognition. They identified vehicle owners who worked late shifts, traveled frequently, or had predictable nighttime routines. David Chen, with his regular late-night coding sessions and consistent route home, had been the perfect target. But why Phoenix? The answer lies in what these cars were being directed toward: the Southwest Regional Data Center, a massive facility located at 3344 North Central Avenue that processes navigation data for over 2.3 million autonomous vehicles across 6 western states: Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and parts of California. This data center wasn't just another server farm. It was the critical infrastructure that kept millions of autonomous vehicles operating safely. Every turn-by-turn navigation instruction, every real-time traffic update, every collision avoidance calculation for autonomous vehicles across the western United States flowed through this facility. The Ghost Driver's plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its potential impact. By simultaneously crashing 157 hijacked vehicles into the data center's external infrastructure, its power systems, cooling units, and communication arrays, they could disable the navigation systems for millions of autonomous vehicles across the region. Imagine the chaos. Millions of cars losing their ability to navigate safely at exactly the same moment. Autonomous vehicles pulled over on highways, stranding passengers. Emergency services overwhelmed with calls. Supply chains grinding to a halt as delivery trucks lost their navigation capabilities. But that chaos was just the cover for the real attack. While emergency responders rushed to deal with millions of stranded vehicles, the Ghost Drivers planned to launch their primary assault on the regional power grid. With law enforcement and cybersecurity teams distracted by the automotive crisis, they would have a clear path to attack the power stations that kept the Southwest United States running. This wasn't just car hacking. This was infrastructure warfare using vehicles as weapons, a new form of digital terrorism that blurred the lines between physical and cyber attacks. As the ghost fleet of 157 hijacked vehicles raced through Phoenix's empty streets, their routes had been carefully calculated. Some approached from the north via the I-17 freeway. Others came from the east, on the Loop 202. A few took surface streets through downtown. All were timed to arrive at the data center within a 30-second window. The attack was scheduled for 3:17 a.m., a time chosen because it would be the exact moment when the data center's night shift would be at minimum staffing, when traffic on surrounding roads would be lightest, and when the facility's backup security systems would be cycling through their scheduled maintenance routines. But the Ghost Drivers had made one critical miscalculation. They hadn't accounted for the possibility that one of their targets would be a cybersecurity professional who understood exactly what was happening to him. As David's Tesla raced through the empty streets of Phoenix at 81 miles per hour, the speed had been increasing gradually every minute. He wasn't just fighting against code. He was fighting against human psychology, fear, and a carefully orchestrated campaign of psychological warfare. The attackers had anticipated that drivers would try to regain control. They had programmed psychological manipulation tactics directly into their attack protocol. This wasn't just about taking control of vehicles. It was about controlling the humans inside them. At 2:59 a.m., the car's premium sound system, usually reserved for David's favorite podcasts and music, crackled to life with a message that made his blood run cold. David Chen, software engineer at CyberShield Solutions. Employee ID 4847. We know where you work. We know where you live at 4847 Thunderbird Road. We know you're usually home by 3:15 a.m. We know about your mortgage payments, your student loans, your sister Emily in Portland. The voice was synthetic, computer generated, but the information was terrifyingly real and personal. The attackers had done their homework. Your vehicle is now part of a larger operation. If you attempt to exit this vehicle, contact authorities, or interfere with this mission, the consequences will extend beyond you. We have access to your company's networks. We have access to your sister's smart home system. We have access to your girlfriend Sarah's medical records from Phoenix General Hospital. This wasn't just a technical attack. It was psychological warfare designed to keep victims compliant and stand terrified while the larger attack played out. The ghost drivers understood that the weakest link in any cybersecurity system isn't the technology, it's the human element. But David had one critical advantage the attackers hadn't fully accounted for. While they knew he was a cybersecurity professional, they had underestimated what that actually meant. David wasn't just another software engineer. He was a specialist in penetration testing and incident response. He'd spent the last 5 years of his career learning to think like an attacker, to find vulnerabilities under pressure, and to respond to active cyber attacks. As his car continued its unauthorized journey through downtown Phoenix, David forced himself to think systematically. Panic was the enemy. Analysis was the weapon. First, he took inventory of what was still under his control. The car's infotainment system was compromised, but his phone was still functional. The vehicle's propulsion and navigation were hijacked, but the interior lighting and climate control were still responding normally. The emergency brake was disabled, but the car's built-in diagnostic systems were still transmitting data. More importantly, David realized that the hackers had made a critical error in their psychological warfare tactics. By telling him about their access to other systems, they had revealed the scope of their operation. This wasn't a simple car hijacking. It was a multi-vector cyber attack with his vehicle as just one component. Using his phone, David accessed Tesla's lesser-known diagnostic interface, a feature that most car owners never knew existed, but which cybersecurity professionals like David had studied extensively. Through this interface, he could see the malicious processes running on his car's systems, the network connections being established, and most importantly, the IP addresses of the servers sending commands to his vehicle. What he found both shocked and encouraged him. The attack wasn't coming from a single sophisticated command and control server. Instead, the hackers were using a distributed network of compromised systems, likely other hacked devices, to coordinate their attack. This suggested they were trying to hide their true location, but it also created potential vulnerabilities in their communication chain. As a cybersecurity professional, David knew exactly what to do with this information, but he also knew he was running out of time. According to his car's hijacked navigation system, he was now just 3.7 miles from the data center, and his estimated arrival time was 3:14 a.m. He had less than 15 minutes to stop not just his own hijacked car, but potentially an entire fleet of weaponized vehicles. With just 12 minutes remaining before his car would crash into the Southwest Regional Data Center, David Chen did what he'd been trained to do for the past 5 years. He fought back, working frantically while his hijacked Tesla continued racing through Phoenix at 84 miles per hour. David used his phone's hotspot to connect his laptop and began the most important penetration test of his career. But this time, he wasn't looking for vulnerabilities in a client's network. He was trying to save his own life and potentially prevent a catastrophic infrastructure attack. What he found through his analysis was both terrifying and illuminating. The attack wasn't coming from a single sophisticated command and control server, as he'd initially assumed. Instead, the ghost drivers were using a distributed network of compromised systems across 12 countries. Servers in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Romania, North Korea, Iran, and 7 other nations. This was the same architectural approach that major corporations use to prevent their websites from going down, distributing infrastructure across multiple locations to prevent a single point of failure. But the ghost drivers were using this technique for digital warfare. The complexity was staggering. Each compromised server handled a different aspect of the attack. Some managed the vehicle control commands, others handled the psychological warfare audio messages, still others coordinated the timing of the synchronized attack. It was a masterpiece of criminal engineering. But David's experience in cybersecurity had taught him to look for patterns, and as he analyzed the network traffic flowing between his car and the attacker infrastructure, he noticed something crucial. Every 47 seconds, all the distributed servers synchronized their commands through a single master server, a system hidden behind multiple layers of proxy servers and VPN connections. For just 3.2 seconds during each sync cycle, this master server would become briefly vulnerable as it collected status updates from all the distributed nodes and pushed out new command updates to the entire Ghost fleet. This was his window. This was his chance. Working frantically as his car continued its unauthorized journey, now just 2.1 miles from the data center, with an estimated arrival time of 3:16 a.m., David began crafting what cybersecurity experts call a kill switch. This wasn't just a simple piece of malware. It was a carefully engineered exploit designed to disable the malicious software controlling not just his car, but potentially all 157 vehicles in the Ghost fleet. The code had to be perfect. He would get only one chance, and if he failed, not only would his car crash into the data center, but 156 other vehicles would follow follow, potentially killing innocent passengers and crippling the autonomous vehicle infrastructure across 6 states. Drawing on every technique he'd learned in 5 years of penetration testing, David crafted a payload that would exploit the brief vulnerability window in the master server. His attack would inject a self-replicating command that would propagate back through the entire distributed network, essentially using the Ghost driver's own infrastructure against them. At exactly 3:11 a.m., as David's car raced down North Central Avenue, with the data center's lights visible in the distance, he initiated his counterstrike during the next sync cycle. For 3.2 seconds, David's kill switch propagated through the Ghost driver's network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. His car's navigation system flickered, displaying a cascade of error messages, then suddenly showed external control terminated, manual control restored. The steering wheel, which had been unresponsive for nearly 30 minutes, suddenly obeyed his input. The brake pedal, which had been completely disabled, engaged properly. David immediately pulled his Tesla to the side of North Central Avenue, just 847 meters from the Southwest Regional Data Center. His hands were shaking from adrenaline, his heart pounding, but he was alive and in control of his vehicle. But even as relief flooded through him, David realized that the real test of his counterstrike wasn't whether he'd saved himself, it was whether he'd stopped the other 156 vehicles in the Ghost fleet. Across Phoenix, the effects of David's digital counterattack were rippling through the hijacked vehicle network. One by one, cars that had been racing toward their target began responding to their driver's commands. Emergency brake systems that had been disabled suddenly re-engaged. Steering wheels that had been locked began responding to human input. Of the 157 vehicles that had been hijacked, David's counterstrike successfully freed 149. 8 vehicles whose systems had been too deeply compromised or whose communication links had been severed during the attack continued toward the data center. But without the coordinated timing and the full force of 157 simultaneous impacts, these remaining vehicles posed a manageable threat to the facility's robust physical security barriers. David had just prevented the first successful infrastructure attack using autonomous vehicles as weapons, but the implications of what had almost happened would reverberate through the cybersecurity and automotive industries for years to come. David's successful counterattack didn't just save his own life, it prevented what cybersecurity experts now consider would have been the most devastating infrastructure attack in modern history. By disabling the Ghost fleet just 847 meters from the Southwest Regional Data Center, he prevented a cascade failure that could have affected over 2.3 million vehicles across 6 western states and caused an estimated $47 billion in economic damage. But the Phoenix incident, as it came to be known in cybersecurity circles, revealed something much more troubling than a single thwarted attack: the fundamental vulnerability of our increasingly connected transportation infrastructure. The investigation that followed David's heroic counterstrike uncovered the true scope of the Ghost driver's operation. This wasn't a group of amateur hackers testing their skills. It was a sophisticated criminal organization with connections to nation-state actors, organized crime syndicates, and rogue technology companies across 3 continents. The attackers had spent not just $47,000 and 3 months preparing the Phoenix attack, but over $2.3 million and 18 months building a global infrastructure capable of weaponizing autonomous vehicles. They had infiltrated automotive supply chains, compromised over-the-air update systems, and established backdoors in vehicles manufactured by 7 different companies. Phoenix was just their proof of concept. Intelligence agencies later discovered that the Ghost drivers had been preparing similar attacks targeting autonomous vehicle infrastructure in Los Angeles, Seattle, Denver, Las Vegas, and Dallas. The Phoenix attack wasn't meant to be their magnum opus. It was meant to be their opening statement in a campaign of digital terrorism that could have paralyzed transportation infrastructure across the entire western United States. This attack wasn't theoretical. It wasn't a security researcher's demonstration at a cybersecurity conference. It was a real-world demonstration that our cars, our infrastructure, and our fundamental trust in autonomous technology are all more vulnerable than anyone in the automotive or cybersecurity industries had ever imagined. The implications rippled far beyond the automotive sector. If hackers could weaponize cars, what about planes, ships, trains? The Phoenix incident forced a complete re-evaluation of cybersecurity across all transportation modes. In the months following the Phoenix incident, the automotive industry implemented sweeping new security measures. Over-the-air updates now require multiple layers of cryptographic authentication and are delivered through isolated air-gap networks. Vehicle-to-everything communications are now encrypted by default built using military-grade encryption protocols. Every autonomous vehicle now includes what's essentially a cybersecurity black box that monitors for signs of compromise. Tesla alone spent over $340 million upgrading their cybersecurity infrastructure following the Phoenix attack. Ford, General Motors, BMW, and other manufacturers implemented similar overhauls. The automotive industry's cybersecurity spending increased by 847% in the year following David's counterstrike. But the hackers are evolving too. In the 18 months since Phoenix, cybersecurity researchers have documented new techniques for infiltrating autonomous vehicles through compromised electric vehicle charging stations, malicious traffic management systems, infected vehicle-to-vehicle communication networks, and even through the smartphones that passengers bring into their cars. The ghost drivers themselves were never fully apprehended. While law enforcement agencies across 12 countries coordinated raids that dismantled much of their infrastructure and arrested 23 individuals, the core leadership remains at large. Intelligence reports suggest they've reorganized and are developing new attack vectors targeting the next generation of connected transportation systems. David Chen became something of a legend in cybersecurity circles. He left Cyber Shield Solutions to start his own automotive cybersecurity consultancy and has been instrumental in helping automakers harden their defenses against the next generation of vehicle-based cyber attacks. But he's the first to admit that the war for control of our cars has only just begun. As we move toward a future where autonomous vehicles become not just common but universal, where every car on the road is connected to the internet and to each other, the stakes of this digital warfare will only get higher. Every vehicle could potentially become a weapon. Every software update could hide malicious code. Every connected system could be an entry point for those who would weaponize our trust in technology. The question isn't whether your car can be hacked. The question isn't even when it will happen. The question is, when it does happen, will you be as prepared as David Chen was that night in Phoenix? Because in the rapidly evolving world of autonomous vehicle cybersecurity, there are no passive passengers, only potential victims and those smart enough, skilled enough, and brave enough to fight back. That concludes another incredible story from the world of cybersecurity. If you found this fascinating, please like this video to help others discover these amazing stories. Subscribe and ring the notification bell for weekly deep dives into legendary hackers, cyber heists, and digital mysteries. What hacker story would you like to see next? Let us know in the comments below.